our next guest is Dr. George J Georgiou, who is the founder of the Da Vinci College of Holistic Medicine, as well as the founder of the Da Vinci Holistic Health Center. So this is a cutting-edge health center. He's dealing in the treatment of chronic diseases, and he specializes in not only chronic diseases, but heavy metal toxicity. And I think this is going to be another brilliant presentation. He's going to be covering Russian space-age medicine. He's got 27 years of clinical practice, so I'm really looking forward to listening to what he has to say. Give a big, warm round of applause for Dr. George J Georgiou, please.
Good morning and welcome, everybody. Today I'm not going to be talking about holistic medicine per se. I'm going to be talking, and I'm going to be more focused on discussing alternatives to antibiotics, and specifically using energy to kill off microbes. This, of course, is not a new technology. It was researched back in the 20s and 30s. And indeed, many of you would know Dr. Rife, Royal Raymond Rife, who used frequencies using his Rife generator to kill off viruses, and he actually found the resonant frequencies for 55 different bacteria as well. This technology is still with us, and this is what I'd like to discuss with you today. So, very briefly, let's ask ourselves, what is energy? Basically, energy is there to do work. There are many different concepts of energy, from Einstein's theories of energy, energy equals mc squared, to Schrodinger's quantum mechanic theories, to more esoteric theories regarding chi energy, the Ayurvedic principle of chakras, etc. But basically, energy is stored in all our cells of our body, and it's there to help us do work, basically, whatever work that may be. Also, it's a very embryonic science, because we don't really have the technology to measure all forms of energy. Our own bodies actually emanate energies that only a decade or so ago we developed the technology to measure. For example, each and every cell of our body actually produces light. It's called biophotons. This is Professor Pop's work. And apparently that is there for cellular communication, because cells do talk to each other. We also feel the energy when we love someone from our heart. We also feel the chemistry when we're in the same room with someone that we particularly like. These are difficult concepts to actually measure, even though we all know that they exist, because we've all felt them at some point in our lives. When we laugh, when we express ourselves with passion, this is all energy, and everybody picks this up, even though if you ask a scientist to actually measure it, it would be very difficult for them to measure. Now, interestingly, the Earth itself has its own resonant frequency, which is called the Schumann wave, and that resonates at 7.83 hertz, or it should do. There are also harmonics of this frequency, 14, 20, all the way to 45 hertz. Interestingly, the brain waves from alpha to delta waves run between those frequencies. This Schumann wave ranges from the surface of the Earth all the way to the ionosphere, which is something like 55 kilometers up. And there's like a space there, which is filled with, like an electromagnetic cavity. And this is charged by the lightning, because worldwide there's probably something like 1,000 different lightning storms every. Am I doing something wrong here? Sorry, I was saying that there's probably 1,000 lightning storms per second worldwide. And it's these lightning storms that actually charge this cavity above the surface of the world, producing and emanating this Schumann wave. Interestingly, as we are progressing, this Schumann wave is actually changing frequency from 7.8 to somewhere around about 11 hertz. And that is speeding up time as well. So, you know, we're all feeling those effects. It also resonates with the brain waves, particularly with the alpha brain waves when we're in a state of relaxation or meditation. Shamans and healers, for example, have a brain resonant frequency of around about 7.83 hertz. So what I'm doing is I'm just setting the scene for what is energy, because it tends to be an esoteric concept that people don't really understand. But energy is all around us. And our heart, interestingly, also resonates at a frequency of around about 7.8. So isn't it interesting that the Earth itself is producing this frequency, our heart is resonating at that frequency, our brain is resonating at that frequency. So this frequency that the Earth is producing is actually keeping us healthy. The heart can be measured. There are very sophisticated, very sensitive measuring devices that can actually measure the energy that emanates from the heart. And they've measured it at a distance of about 4 meters, about 15 feet. So when you walk into a room, your energy locks in to the energy of the other person or other people without you even being aware of it. And it has this nice toroidal shaped. And this toroidal shape is a very sort of magical type of energy. So even Einstein said whatever form or matter is energy. This is a visual representation of energy. You've probably read Dr. Emoto Masura's work. What he did is he set up a laboratory in the refrigerator, and he would take water and he would put words on the bottle of water, and he would freeze it, and then he would photograph the crystalline patterns of this frozen water. And what he found is that both words and music actually affect these crystalline patterns, which we can see visually. So when he put the word compassion up, you see it has a nice geometric crystalline form. Thank you, wisdom, nice words. However, when words such as I kill you, I will kill you, you fall, you can see that the crystalline patterns just disintegrate. Also, playing heavy metal music does not help the crystalline forms. So this is a form of visual medicine, if you like, actually seeing the effect of energy on water. And why is this important for us? Because we are made up of at least 70% water. So therefore, when we're surrounded by negative energies, all of that water in our body is absorbing that negative energy, and it's changing form, which is apparently not healthy for us. Prayer as well is another energy that works in zero time and space. They took water from a polluted lake, This is the first image that you can see there. And because it was polluted, it didn't have that crystalline form because it was full of pollution. When a group of monks prayed over the water, same water, and it was photographed again, you can see the beautiful geometric pattern of that same water after offering a prayer. Thank you, you will make me sick, I will kill you. Thank you and love and appreciation are words from the heart. And you can see the beautiful effect that has on the crystalline geometry of the water. Whereas other words like, I hate you, which you shouldn't say to your worst enemy because the consequences are quite dire. Here's the example of love and hate. So, what I'd like to talk about now, given that we've given some foundation as to energy and what is energy and how we can measure it, etc., I'd like to talk about resonance. You're probably all familiar with what is resonance. It just means the matching of frequencies. When two frequencies match, then there's a resonant phenomena that takes place. It's like all living things and non-living things have their own resonant frequency. It's like they have a unique sound. So a wine glass, for example, a crystal wine glass may have a resonant frequency of around about 500 hertz cycles per second. If we can produce the same frequency as the glass, that glass will absorb that energy and it will smash. You've probably heard of the phenomena of an opera singer actually smashing a glass because of her or his high voice. This is what they're doing. Two tuning forks, for example, if we had one tuning fork in the back and a tuning fork here on the same note, and I hit this one, that one would start also playing because there is a resonant match of frequencies. When we turn on our radios, suspension bridges as well, as the wind is blowing, if they can match the same momentum as the bridge will collapse. These are all examples of resonance. Now, what is of interest to us to discuss alternative methods to antibiotics is to look at what is bioresonance. Let's see if we can actually get this. Yes, we can. Okay. This is an example. It's a small video. It will only run for less than a minute. And it's an example of... Is it not running? It started to run. Okay, it was an example of a glass. There's a speaker behind the glass. Here we go. It's running a bit slow. The speaker behind the glass is producing a sound which is matching the resonant frequency of the glass. And the glass will start pulsating, and within a few seconds, the glass will actually smash. This is the phenomena of resonance. Very easily reproducible by an O-level biology student, in physics, let's say, in a laboratory. All you need is a speaker and a glass. Now, let's look at what is bioresonance, because that was the phenomenon of resonance. Bioresonance is if we substitute the glass, let's say, for a living organism, the living organism, whether it's a parasite or whether it's a bacteria or whether it's a virus or whether it's a protozoa or whatever it may be, a microbe, it has its own resonant frequency. So if we can produce the same frequency as that bug, then that bug will also absorb the energy and it will smash, it will lyse, it will break open its cell wall. And this is the phenomena of bioresonance. And we do have a slide. I'm not sure if we can get it. Okay, this is an example of a paramecium. It's a protozoan, where as it's been hit with the frequencies, you can see that the cell wall begins to lyse, begins to break open, because what these frequencies are doing to the cell wall, because it's semi-permeable, it's actually causing a phenomenon called electroporation, where it's opening and closing the cell wall until the point where it weakens and then it breaks open. And this is what is happening here. Now, we actually have a video under the microscope demonstrating this, but I'm not sure if this is going to work. It seems to be running, very slowly for some reason. Let's just give it 10-15 seconds. If it doesn't work, you can find these on YouTube videos. Just put on killing microbes with frequencies, and you'll find a number of these, or smashing glasses with frequencies. And it's interesting to see just how frequencies alone can smash them. Okay, well, we can, so we'll run it manually, yeah? Okay. Doesn't like the, there he goes. Okay. This is being hit with frequencies of around about 1,150 hertz. And that is the resonant frequency of this particular protozoan. So it's interesting because all these bugs are out there, like the Ebola, which is the new one. There are many other different bugs out there that all have their own resonant frequency. All we need to do is actually find the frequency of these bugs. And towards the end, I'll show you, how we can do that. Now, one of the famous bioresonance researchers was Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, who actually built frequency generators and managed to match the frequency of viruses which he was finding in cancer cells. He called these viruses the BX virus and the BY virus. He, of course, developed this universal microscope that you can see there, which enabled him to see viruses in their living state. So therefore, he would put the virus under the microscope, he would have his frequency generators next to the microscope, producing the frequencies in a plasma tube. And as soon as he found the frequencies, he would see that the virus would disintegrate under the microscope, and then he knew that frequency was the matching frequency for killing off these viruses or other bacteria that he looked at. Unfortunately, he wasn't very popular with the FDA at the time, and they moved in and they destroyed his laboratory, they destroyed a lot of his research, they pulled him through the courts. The same old story that repeats itself, because obviously the pharmaceutical companies at the time did not want to have their profits taken away from them by treating microbes with electricity. There are other researchers. I won't go into the details. Vole was one of the pioneers because he discovered ways of identifying different parasites and microbes in the body using bioresonance testing. If you want to see a bioresonance device, there is a table out there. And you can see the bioresonance device during the break, and I'll explain how that works. His method was a little bit long-winded because you had to know all the acupuncture points of the body, around about 1,500 of them. So it was quite a time-consuming thing to actually measure, because he could also measure the functioning of organ systems as well. And then Schimmel came along and discovered that you can do all that with 1 point. So if you find the conductivity of 1 acupoint on any finger or toe, and you take an ampule of, let's say, the Ebola virus, and you place it onto the honeycomb of one of the bioresonance devices, and there are different types, there's Russian types, there's German types, etc. If the patient has the Ebola virus while you are measuring, then there will be a resonant effect, and there will be a drop in the indicator. And then you know that there is a resonant effect, so therefore, if there is a resonant effect, that can't take place if the virus is not in the patient. So using this type of technology, you can measure very, very quickly over 100 different microbes in less than 15 minutes. You don't have to do all this sophisticated testing. And then you can treat these microbes using bioresonance therapy. Now, there are large bioresonance devices. This is one of the earlier MORA devices. There is also the BICOM, which again is German technology. These are big devices. They sit in clinics. Patients come in. They have to be plugged into them. But they have good capabilities at destroying microbes because they're producing resonant frequencies of these microbes. Moreover, they can take the resonant frequencies of the whole patient through the electrodes, and then you can invert those resonant frequencies and cancel out the pathological oscillatory frequencies of the patient, or whatever is contained in the patient that's producing those pathological oscillatory frequencies. Now, this type of technology is not for everybody because it's not very convenient for the patient, because they have to travel to the clinic, they have to be plugged in, you know, there's a cost involved, etc. Quite recently, the Russians came up with a new innovation, which in my mind was quite brilliant, because I've been in this field for over 20 years, and I have all sorts of devices in the Da Vinci Holistic Health Center in Larnaca, Cyprus, where I work. But when I heard and saw the devices, this is an example of a device that the Russians have invented. It's a bioresonant device. It's a frequency generator, but it's microscopical compared to these ones. And this, the patient can actually purchase, probably for the price of a mobile phone, and everybody's got mobile phones. And there's a little USB dongle that has 3,000 different frequencies covering all the microbes you can possibly imagine. And this is programmable. So you stick it onto your computer and you download the frequencies of those particular microbes that you are interested in eradicating. If you have the opportunity, of course, of going to a bioresonance practitioner who can also test for which viruses and which bacteria and which parasites your body has, then you can get very bespoke and very specific. Otherwise, you can run the general programs. There are 30 pre-installed programs when you get the device. So, you know, there's programs for worms, for example. Probably most people in this room have some type of worm in their body. It's a very common parasite. and so on and so forth. They've done 20 years of laboratory and clinical research with over 117 studies, and the successes that they're getting compared to the successes of conventional medicine and natural medicine, I will say as well, because being a practitioner for 30 years, I haven't had success with hepatitis. I haven't had success with treating some of the other viruses. H. pylori is quite a tough one to get rid of. This is the Helicobacter pylori bacteria that sits in the stomach and drills through the mucosa of the stomach. It's a nasty bacteria. Well, with these devices, they're actually getting very high success rates. So this is definitely an alternative to antibiotics, which of course is not in the favorite books of the big pharma. This is the DaVita app, which stands for antiparasitic. It can zap parasites, bacteria, fungi, viruses. It has 1,500 available programs that can be downloaded from the Therapy 8 USB. It has 30 pre-installed programs when you buy it, so you can run it for yourself and your family. It's very safe for children. You can run it on pets as well. Usually pets are full of worms. And it just runs on 2 AA batteries. So it's very simple to use, but the innovation is the fact that it's now compact. And all you have to do is just wear it around your neck or on your belt or put it in your pocket. And it will work. And believe me, it does work. It is effective. We've been using these for about a year and a half now. And we're seeing all sorts of different microbes being eradicated from the body. These are some of the pre-installed programs, but there are 90 different virus types, 91 different bacteria types, 61 different fungi, protozoas, different helminths. These are the worms. And the advantages, of course, is that it's a very easy and effective way of curing disease because there are other devices that they have produced, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Ritme, the DaVita Ritme, produces different types of frequencies for upregulating the organ systems, because all the organ systems of the body also have their own resonant frequencies. So let's say the lung, which has a resonant frequency of 72 hertz, when the lung gets ill, let's say it's infected or you've got pneumonia, etc., the resonant frequency of that organ will drop. And so if you can produce, using these devices, a 72 hertz frequency, which is the frequency of the healthy lung, you're actually helping that lung and that organ to upregulate. Actually increases the transmembrane potential, which is the voltage which all the cells in the lungs have, that runs between 70 and 100 millivolts. So you can eradicate infectious diseases, you can eliminate parasites, different microorganisms, you can use it for all age groups. So it becomes like a family doctor. And it's the closest thing to Star Trek medicine that I have met. And we're not very far from that type of technology. Within the next 10 years, I think Star Trek technology will be commercially available to all of us. This is the bioresonance diagnostic device. It's also a therapeutic device as well. Using the probe while the patient is plugged in, you can simply measure the resonance with the patient while you're testing different microorganisms. You can also test, of course, different organ systems to see which organs are weak, and you can even go as far as identifying which microorganisms are present in which organs, and you can also tell which microorganisms are active, because our bodies are full of different microorganisms, but they're not all pathogenic. They're not all disease producing. Some of them will be in their active form, and that depends on the internal milieu of the body. It depends on the pH of the body. It depends on what we're eating. It depends on whether we are dehydrated. All the things that Janie talked about are very relevant to how these microorganisms will behave in the body. They can either become dormant, or they can wake up and become pathogenic and disease-causing. So this bioresonance device, which of course is only for practitioners and it requires training, because the Russians do not speak English. When I trained with them extensively, they picked up my knowledge base in this field, and they have now made me the English-speaking professor for teaching bioresonance to English-speaking practitioners. And so there's an online course, Energy Medicine and Bioresonance, on my college site. Information is available outside for those practitioners in the room that may be interested. And basically, there's also clinical practicum. We're holding one in Cyprus on the 20th of November, and there's practitioners from all over the world that will come in, and we will do a very 5-day intensive clinical training on how to use these devices. It's a very quick and accurate analysis of the whole body with minimal cost, and this particular device actually can treat the patient. So practitioners can have it in their office and can use it for treating. And you can, if you're an acupuncturist, you can use it in an electroacupuncture mode. It also can treat using electromagnetic mode, much like these work. You can also use it with color light therapy. They call it quantum light, or bioresonance. Bioresonance is where it's taking the energy of the person and inverting the pathological frequencies and giving back the clean electromagnetic wave to the patient. And it's doing that continuously. So it's a beautiful way, if you do not understand the underlying causative factors present in the patient, it's a beautiful way of working sort of blindly, if you like, because all the device is doing is cleaning up energetically the pathological oscillatory frequencies in the patient. We are made of energy as well as flesh and blood. Unfortunately, conventional medicine know absolutely nothing about energy principles, or very little, even though they use them themselves. MRI scans use energy. X-rays use energy. CAT scans use energy. They use energy for radiotherapies, for treating cancers and what have you. So it's not that they don't use them, but a lot of those energies are quite detrimental because they're gamma radiation, and this is not good. This type of energy is a very mild form of energy, which has no detrimental effects. So if I program this to the Ebola virus and I gave it to any one of you, if you didn't have the Ebola virus, the electromagnetic fields would just go straight through you. It would have no effect, no side effects either. But if you do have the Ebola virus, then the Ebola virus will be absorbing that energy and it will be lysing, it will be destroyed. They have, the Russians have spent a long time developing these, and this is what attracted me, because the first question I asked is, where's the research? When they put 117 clinical trials in my hand, of course, a lot of them were in Russian, and we had to translate some of them. There was quite impressive research. They were using very large samples from, their big Russian clinics, in the thousands. They also had patents in 73 countries, including the US and many other countries of Europe. They've been certified by the Ministry of Health of the Russian Republic for use amongst its 300 million population, and also Israel did their own independent research, and they also certified it. And Germany recently, because they're now manufactured in Germany, have issued a CE for wellness, which covers, of course, the whole of Europe, including the UK. And they have won many awards from governmental. This is the CE certificates. This is an example of some of the research. This is a big gynecological survey in a Russian clinic looking at the treatment of pelvic inflammatory disease. Now, practitioners in the room will probably know that this is a difficult problem to deal with. And when they did the diagnosis, the analysis, they found that a lot of these women were suffering from chlamydia, mycoplasms, ureaplasma, cytomegalovirus, herpes, and HPV, human papillomavirus. So they used the DeVita or the DETA, the previous generation app antiparasitic, to zap these, and they had an 85% success rate in curing PID. This was in a pediatric clinic, and here they had a lot of children with intestinal infections, mostly parasitic, which again they tested for. They programmed the apps, they gave them to the kids, and 86% of the kids were cured. Usually these kids would be pumped to the eyeballs with different antibiotics and different drugs, which of course kill off the friendly bacteria in the gut, and that opens the door for many other opportunistic infections, such as systemic candidiasis or candida. Also, it represses the immune system. So it's not good to pump up kids with lots of antibiotics. As we said, there were 117 clinical trials with hepatitis, helicobacter, parasites, prostatitis. The cure rate for prostatitis was a 96%. There are other scientific studies apart from the Russians. Here we have a study using bioresonance therapy that has shown an effect on the antioxidant system of the body, of the lymphocytes, the white blood cells, with rheumatoid arthritis, in fact. Here we have an investigation on the antiparasitic activity of using, again, bioresonance technology against lamblia cysts, and cryptosporidium oocytes. This is another study that shows the effect of bioresonance therapy on different ENT zones of the body, and so on and so forth. Staphylococcus aureus, Escherichia coli. These are all peer-reviewed research studies that, of course, not many people see unless you happen to be in that field. But the point I'm making is that these studies do exist, because one of the criticisms that you will often hear is that this is all voodoo. This is rubbish. You can't kill microbes with energy, with frequencies. Well, you can, and people are doing it. Unfortunately, this type of research is not funded by the pharmaceutical companies that tend to fund research studies in medical schools for research on producing more drugs, because that is, of course, their interest. So, you know, funding is not freely available for this type of research. Here, we are demonstrating the principle of electroporation, because this is basically how these electromagnetic fields penetrate cells, and they cause the semi-permeable membranes to literally, you know, shake, you know, to death, where they lyse and open up. They form, you know, much bigger. Of course, if you're taking drugs at the time, the drugs will be much more easily absorbed and made more easily bioavailable. So it's an interesting concept, because if you take a cancer patient who is doing chemotherapy, they can reduce their chemotherapy just simply by using bioresonance in combination. Now, one of my dreams, hopefully before I go to the other side, is to actually repeat some of Rife's research. And there is now a commercially available microscope that was made by a German physicist, Dr. Olbrich, that can actually magnify to a point and with a resolution where you can see living viruses. Living viruses. Of course, there are electron microscopes that have magnifications in excess of 500,000 times, but because the sample is being bombarded by electrons, it kills the viruses. Now, you don't want to kill the virus, because you want to see it in its living state, and you want to bombard it with your frequencies to identify the matching frequencies. In terms of the electronics now, that has been perfected. They have reversed engineered all of Rife's technology, original technology, and they have solved that issue. We now know exactly those resonant frequencies that the Rife devices were producing. And these are easily reproducible now, very easily. So we have the electronics. We need some funding, and it does take around about €1 million, which is not a great deal, because the microscope itself is 240,000. And then you need, you know, a couple of microbiologists working in a lab, you know, maybe for a maximum of a couple of years. But the point is that this work is reproducible, you know, and if there's anybody in the audience or anybody, you know, who knows any millionaires that are willing to drop $1 million, they will leave a legacy behind them, literally. Because once you do the laboratory research and you identify the resonant frequencies, let's say, of the herpes virus, we all know that herpes, whoever has herpes, is an incurable virus, because it lives in the cerebrospinal fluid of the spine, and it just migrates along the neural pathways whenever we get, you know, stressed or the internal milieu of our body changes. It would be nice to eradicate that. Well, if we can identify the resonant frequency of the herpes virus, for example, then we can put it in a box half the size of this, and it will be a box for curing the herpes virus, or the HPV, another one, or the hepatitis B and C, or the Ebola, or whatever new virus decides to come our way. Once the laboratory is set up, the potential for identifying the resonant frequencies of any new bugs, MRSAs, etc., big problem, killing many people, is ad infinitum. Here's a case of a Russian boy, 4.5 years old now. He had eczema from top to bottom from the age of 3 months. He went to many different doctors at considerable cost. And by the age of 3, he was still covered. The child couldn't sleep, the parents couldn't sleep. The pruritus, the itching, was incredible. And eventually, the child went to a Russian bioresonance practitioner who identified Giardia, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, and worms in the child. Programmed only the DETA app for these parasites and microbes, and within a month, the child was literally 30-40% better. Within 2 months, 50-60% better. And then within 1 year of just simply running the device for a few hours, which can be run under the pillow as well while we sleep, it was completely well. No other drugs, no other treatments. This is another case of psoriasis. This is actually a Russian doctor who was suffering 10 years with psoriasis, covered with blisters and constant itching and bleeding, etc. And when they tested him, they found literally balls of worms inside the gut with echinococcus. And they programmed the devices, just the DETA app, and within a few months, he was completely cleared. I think he's now a bioresonance practitioner. Paradigm shift there. Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Of course, we can expound on that, for another week. But I think we'll leave it there. We have a few minutes for questions. So let's begin with the first question here. Do mobile phones and Wi-Fi interfere with the therapeutic qualities of the bioresonance? I would say yes, because they're putting a big load on the body, a detrimental load, because these are electromagnetic waves that distort the very subtle electromagnetic fields of the body, and they can cause all sorts of different symptoms. So Wi-Fi's and mobile phones are dangerous, I would say, and I don't only say that, but many health ministries have actually written up papers on the topic, and are warning that there are detrimental effects from these. And a lot of people have them in their pockets, or they have them close to their hearts, or when they're driving, they put them by their genitals. These, it's not good, for all these physiological systems of the body. There's a question there. No, I haven't. Okay. Okay. The question, or rather the comment, is that there is a center of Korean treatment using some form of energy on a mat, which may be infrared, it may be all sorts. There are many healing devices around that work with energy that are effective. And, we could spend weeks, but in an hour, it's difficult to cover, the field of electromedicine. We have a question here. The treatment, what do you mean, the treatment? The Dr. Ellis is anybody can purchase these devices from the Russian company themselves. Online, yes. They sell to everybody. They sell to the public. In terms of bioresonance practitioners, because this is a new field, particularly in the English-speaking world, because most of the practitioners, bioresonance practitioners now, for Dr. Ellis are in Russia, of course. But as of the 20th of November, or 24th when we finish, there will be, I think, at least 2 Dr. Ellis bioresonance practitioners in the UK. We will put their details up on the website, so people can find them, and then you can call them yourselves and book an appointment, and then you can go for the bioresonance testing, and then they will help to program the devices. I have a question here.
Yeah, the message I've got from this talk is that bioresonance destroys whatever it is. Now, you mentioned that the heart, if it gets sick, reduces its resonant frequency. And you said that by using the resonant frequency of a healthy heart, you can help it build up again.
Correct.
But how can you do that without destroying the heart?
Well, the principle of upregulating organ systems is different, and the frequencies are different from what are used with microbes. For example, all the organs of the body have a resonant frequency of between 0 and 100 hertz. So the other device, which is called the Davita Ritme, RITM, that only covers that span of frequencies, whereas the antiparasitic goes up to 86,000 hertz. So, you wouldn't be using the Davita app, to heal the heart, because it's not going to be working at the same frequency. You can use heart frequencies on the Davita app, but it will be addressing some of the underlying causative factors, such as microbes, that may be interfering, with the heart. But the Davita Ritme is actually giving the frequency, the healthy frequency of the heart, to help upregulate it. And it will do that for all organ systems. Yes, we have one in the back. Yes, hello, Rosie. Do you want to stand up, Rosie, so we can hear you better? Okay. We did not pay Rosie to... I didn't even know she was in the audience. Come and talk by the microphone.
As I say, it's just really a personal thanks to Dr. George for everything he's done and brought me to today. I went a year ago, almost to the day, to see him. I had a 40-inch waist. For 20 years, I had chronic ME. My husband had spent, I can't tell you how much money, trying to find a cure. And ironically, I read about Dr. George when his book came out, and he was always my hero. And I wanted to go, but it was unaffordable. So 20 years later, we went, because we'd just done everything. So Dr. George tested me. I had, as he said, a zoo in my body.
London Zoo.
Yeah, no, it was horrible. By this stage, I could hardly walk. I was chronically depressed. I had, among other things, H. pylori. I am now free of it. I had a friend who sadly went the antibiotic route at the same time, who has now got cancer, or has been tested for cancer. so many things are better. So it's thanks to Dr. George and Detta Ellis. So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. 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 I think that's not really relevant to what we're talking about now. Anybody who's interested in understanding, world politics, because it is part of the New World Order and world politics, maybe we can have a private conversation outside. Yes, we have another question. Yes, anything positive that you do to the body, whether it's helping with dehydration in the body or whether it's changing the food that we're eating to more healthy food, or whether it's learning to relax through meditation or prayer or whatever, it will change the resonant frequencies of different organ systems and will create a better balance. So, you're up-regulating on an energetic level as well, each and every physiological system of the body. However, often we get loaded up with so many things over time that this causal chain, the first domino hitting the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, etc., is very extensive. And as a holistic practitioner, one of my heroes is Sherlock Holmes, because that's what I do. I put my Sherlock Holmes hat on, and I go into this labyrinth using all the technology that we have at the center, and we identify the underlying causative factors, and then we prioritize that so we can understand what was the first domino that hit the second domino, and so on and so forth. One aspect, of course, is identifying the microbe load, and as Rosie said, she had London Zoo because, we're off the page with, what she had accumulated, and the more imbalanced the body is, the more reactive these become. I mean, on average, we have 3 to 5 kilos in weight at about 10 pounds of microbes in our body. They have more genes, not the ones we're wearing, than we have. We're only 1% human genes. The rest is all the genes of all these microbes. This is a scientific fact. Of course, the question is, how do they react? What's their relationship? Because there is a symbiotic relationship as well. I think we have a question here. Yes? I don't know the Queen personally. I don't know the royal family. There are rumors. Regarding the violet ray, it is a form, it's a very primitive form of bioresonance, which also uses very high voltages to produce ozone as you run it along the skin. But it's not as sophisticated as these bioresonance devices with very bespoke and specific frequencies. Yeah. Yes? am I aware of any frequencies? Oh, to cause lysing in the human body? Yes, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure about that one, but certainly the military have been using energies and frequencies. Usually they pulse at very low frequencies, and these can have extremely detrimental effects on the body. But they're very high power frequencies from huge transmitters. HARP would be one example of that. And they can cause imbalances in neurotransmitter substances in the brain, so it can cause you to flip and become schizophrenic, depressive. They can cause organ damage as well. Yeah. Magnetic energy, again, is another form of energy. They're another form of electromagnetic energy, produced by the magnets themselves. It requires qualified practitioners because you can go the other way if you just pick up some magnets and you put them on yourself, depending on what the spin quality of various organ systems, because negative energy has a left spin energy. And often we find in different organs, and we can test it using the bioresonance device, we can test which organs have a left spin energy, which we then have to do things to reverse. If you have a lot of organs with left spin energy and you stick magnets on, you're going to speed up that left spin energy. You're going to get sicker. So that's why it requires a qualified practitioner before you start playing with magnets or any form of energy. Yes? There are frequencies. Of course, heavy metals have their own resonant frequency. Mercury has its own resonant frequency. That we know because we have mercury lamps. If you sit under a mercury lamp, you'll get a resonant frequency. Your body will start releasing mercury. So it's not good to sit under mercury lamps. Of course, a lot of fluorescent lamps also contain mercury. But yes, the principle is the same. You can use resonant frequencies to help the body eliminate the heavy metals from the body as well. But you must understand that a lot of this research, unfortunately, was lost from the early pioneers because the powers that be did not want this to come to fruition. Now, as the Schumann wave is accelerating and time is accelerating, we are actually accelerating in our own spiritual development as well. And we are seeing more and more light beings that are coming out and they are talking. We're seeing more whistleblowers, for example. We're seeing more people expressing their opinion and overcoming the fears. And the more that this happens, the more this type of therapy will develop. We just need to be brave enough to ride the tsunami because, as we're all aware, there are tsunamis that are being created in different parts of the world. And the more aware of these things that we are, the more resistance and immunity we will have to be able to ride those waves. Yep. I think is this the last question, or do we have a few minutes? 2 minutes, okay. He made 5 viral microscopes. The universal microscope was the top of the range. Number 3 microscope, I actually went to see in the Science Museum here in London. Anybody can have access to that. You have to send them, some literature, and they have it in, their archives. Yes. Yes. The technology for reintroducing a similar microscope with a similar magnification and resolution is already available. It's commercially available. However, there is a cost to it, which is beyond, what an individual can afford, unless they happen to be, a very rich individual. And it's a shame, because there are many rich individuals that, go to casinos and spend $1 million in a night. Yet, if they put that $1 million on the table, and I will gladly do it free of charge. I don't want to be paid for this type of research. I will gladly do it just to leave a legacy and help people, because I think this is cutting-edge technology. It's 21st century medicine. It needs to be developed. There are the microscopes that are being developed are not the ones that you can see living viruses and microbes, etc. Okay, one last question. Yes, one last question. If you have a pacemaker, yes, it's probably a contraindication if you have a pacemaker, because the electromagnetic fields may interfere with the electronics of the pacemaker, and of course that's not good for the heart. Yeah. In the same way as bioresonance diagnostics would be a contraindication, because there's a small current that goes through the acupuncture meridians, and again that could have the same effect.
In the same way your machine had an effect on the microphone.
Yes.
Potentially. Okay, big round of applause for Dr. Georgiou.